Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tales of the LGBTQ. My name is Douglas Parsons, and I wish to acknowledge that I learn and work on Treaty 6 and Métis ancestral lands, the traditional meeting grounds, gathering place, and traveling route to the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene. We acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps we have marked these lands for centuries. This is where we will strive to honor and transform our relationships with each other. If this is your first time listening to the Tales of the LGBTQ podcast, welcome. This visual and audio podcast has been created to have you share and listen to your stories, the stories of our 2S LGBTQ community. We are brilliant, amazing people, and we have stories to share. And it's through this platform that we're able to do so. If you are a returnee, welcome back. I'm glad to see that we are doing this right. These are our stories, and I'm thrilled to be able to share them with you. If you are listening through the audio podcast, such as an Apple podcast itself, please leave a review. Those stars, those messages do get noticed by Apple. They then promote us a little bit more, and it's our stories that get put out there more. Always a good thing. Thank you very much for your support. It's so greatly appreciated. Tonight's guests are Carrie Scott and Kelly Schwab, who are the producers, directors of the Transcanada Project. Soon after I began this podcast, Kelly got a hold of me and said, "We've got this great idea. This is what we're going to do. Can we?" And I'm like, whatever that is, the answer to that is going to be yes. No yes buts, but yes and. This is what I know to this point. The Transcanada Project is in its infancy. They are making plans to visit many places across Canada, to visit trans folk and share their stories of trials and hope. And right from what they say, their mission is to tell the stories of trans individuals across Canada, making the transgender community more visible and relatable to both trans questioning people and those seeking to know them. I'm thrilled to finally have Kelly and Carrie on this episode. So everyone, please welcome to Tales of the LGBTQ for the very first time, Kelly and Carrie.
Hi, Doug.
Hi.
Welcome. Welcome to Tales of the LGBTQ.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to start first with you, Kelly, because you are the first person to contact me, and now you're in trouble.
Okay.
You're in trouble in a good way. So I get this message, and I don't recognize the name. I don't recognize the face, but you colored me intrigued with what you are going to do. And so, Kelly, before we get into what it is, why is it so important to you that these stories are told?
Oh, wonderful question. That it was kind of, Carrie and I both have had the same questions. We wanted to see ourselves. We're baby trans. I've only been out since December of 2020. And we saw stories on YouTube and whatnot of other people, mostly American, various other countries, but hardly any Canadian stories. Carrie was the one that originated the idea, actually, and I turned it into a road trip. But it felt like an important thing for us. Both of us are kind of coming out roughly at the same time and learning and wanting to see ourselves and people like us, right?
The road trips are fine, and both of you searching for ice cream looks like a great story. But when you met with Kelly and why was this important for you?
Well, the idea actually began in my head anyway before I met Kelly. I'm a photographer, and I had run across another photographer who had done a project about Muslim women across Canada, and was showing a gallery of the pictures and the stories behind the people that they were taking pictures of. And I thought that'd be an amazing project to do. And of course, the natural connection for me then was with trans people. Being fairly fresh and figuring out who I am and my identity, it just resonated, and it was something I thought would be great to do. The problem is I'm a good photographer, but I'm not a very good networker. And it was amazing when I met Kelly and we got talking about the idea and the project, which honestly would not have happened if it had just been me, because I kind of suck in that area. And Kelly says, well, I can network. And she's been doing an amazing job with that ever since. She's the one who contacts people and lines up the interviews and everything else, and then hands it off. We do the interviews together, and then I do all the production after that, all the edit and everything else to be able to post the stories.
Yeah.
This is a good team.
It is.
Yeah, I can definitely back up on that one, because now with Tales of the LGBTQ plus, we're approximately 22, 23 episodes in. We're hitting our stride a little bit more. Kelly found us after the very first episode. So I'm not even sure I had pressed the button saying that here it is to the world, and Kelly had already contacted me. So thank you so much, Kelly, because you were the very first person outside my family and friends to say, let's sign on and let's see what we can do. Kelly, Carrie, how long have you known each other for?
Not that long.
No, a little bit.
We actually met in a local transgender group, support group here. So the project's been running since about March. Our first video was posted just the beginning of April, and we met maybe February, I'm guessing, Kelly. I
can't remember. It feels like forever, but it's also it really has only been probably February.
And there was a lot of resonance in our stories between the two of us. So we kind of connected. A lot of similarities, and came together.
Well, and myself, I'm based here in Edmonton, Alberta. Where are both of you as far as general area?
We're both kind of in the KW area. Kelly is in Cambridge, which is just south of Kitchener-Waterloo, and I'm in Elmira, which is just north of Kitchener-Waterloo. Kind of sucks the distance between, because it's a little hard to coordinate things sometimes, but the internet is amazing.
We spend a lot of time on Zoom.
Yeah.
You're close enough to perhaps reach out, but at the same time, far enough away to not get into too much trouble.
Oh, well.
I'm not sure what trouble that would be, but
at the top of the episode, I described a little bit from what I understand as being the Transcanada Project, and I'll just repeat it again, that your mission is to tell the stories of trans individuals across Canada, making the transgender community more visible and relatable to both trans questioning people and those seeking to know them. There's a couple of questions that can come from this, and I'll go back to what Kelly said at the beginning, saying you heard American stories, but you didn't really hear the Canadian ones. Are there Canadian stories that have been produced by CBC or through the other networks that tell a bit of the story?
There are some. The National Film Board's done a couple on a specific individual, but not many, and they weren't produced by transgender people either. And that I think is important. There have been stories on CBC news and radio. In fact, I was on CBC radio in Regina a little while back, talking about the Transcanada Project as well. There's more awareness during Pride Week, Pride Month, but it tends to peter out but in general, both Carrie and I turned to YouTube looking for information, and other places. And it was interesting that the United States, the UK, a few other countries and whatnot, but there was a hole, and it's one of those things like you either lament it or you fix it, right? So we're fixing it.
Well, it is ambitious, but obviously it's needed. For myself, I grew up not knowing the T in our 2S LGBTQ plus. I could count on one finger before 2010 of someone I knew, even an acquaintance who identified as transgender. Now, here in 2021, if you were to ask me how many people I know, I'm going to be here for a while. I don't know the correct word for it, but there seems to be an explosion, a cornucopia of people being their authentic self and striving towards that authenticity. Has there been something that took place in the last 10 years where we have seen this movement happen? It can't just be in the water where everybody drank a glass of water and said, all right, it's time to be myself. But can we pinpoint a specific moment?
I don't know if there'd be a specific moment per se, but just speaking from personal experience, 10 years ago, first of all, I wouldn't have felt safe in coming out. I don't think it's as accepted as it is now. And I think that's been a seismic shift in the last 10 years. And secondly, being non-binary myself, I hadn't even heard of that. And really hearing about that was part of what helped me to finally understand what was going on with me.
Yeah, and it's this incredible piece because, as you mentioned, the word non-binary, I had never heard of it. Even the word cis, CIS, for our listeners, being a cis male, that was a word that was foreign to me. And what I find fascinating about the times that we live in now is that we have these vocabulary words that we never thought about before, and perhaps vocabulary words that have not been created yet that's to come, because we are finally at a point where we're exploring sexuality, identity, gender, all of that in there. And it's fascinating to be open to that rather than be defensive, where our default setting seems to be at many times. Support systems. Are there support systems where you are at or in the Toronto area that you have found have been extremely credible, have been helpful in your journey?
Oh, for me, for sure. I found, before I transitioned, I found a group with at Sherburne Health online. It was COVID, and so it was on Zoom. But it was rather fortuitous that they were doing it that way, because there's no way I would have driven downtown Toronto and presented myself to people I didn't know. But on Zoom, it was nice and safe, and you could kind of duck out if you had to and whatnot. There are several groups down there, and it was really helpful and very important for me before it came out, when I was exploring, and when I finally came out. The KW group is family at this point, and that's where I met Carrie as well. But and several other really good friends. That support was necessary for survival, really. it pushed away isolation and pushed away a number of, some self-doubt and whatnot. It just was very comfortable and very affirming. Again, all on Zoom, again, because of COVID and whatnot. And for me, it's kind of funny that Carrie talks about me as the networking girl. I'm rather shy, and coming out has really changed me a lot. My dad and my brother are both kind of like, who is this girl? And where did she come from? Because I don't remember anybody in the family that had that kind of gumption to get out and talk to people and whatnot. That support and familial support as well has been really, really important to me. Critical, basically.
Yeah, for me, when I first started trying to figure out what was going on, my wife said, "You got to find your people," And yeah. I already said I'm not a great networker, so it wasn't easy for me. But I come from a Christian background, and it was kind of important for me to kind of figure out the intersection of that too. And so I got connected with a group locally here that was Christian based. And you talk about not knowing that many in the T section. I didn't even know that many in the L and the G part. So it was really good for me to just expand my mind in that regard, and in doing that, it helped me find myself. And then I got connected with the same group that Kelly was in, where we discovered each other. And we're still parts of those groups, and it's important to have those groups just to be a support and to help us see and learn more. It was incredible that the group that we're part of, there's a lot of younger trans people, and it's been really interesting just to see and learn the differences, between old folks like us coming out late in life and those who are facing similar but different challenges when they're coming out much younger.
Kelly, you made reference to the word baby trans earlier, and I love the idea of that. Now, for myself, I'm a cis male gender. If I use that term, is that appropriate, or is that something that you're like, hey, only I call myself baby trans?
No, no. I mean, I hope to grow out of it someday. I'm still in my I'm still in my trans teens, I guess. It's a term I've heard a couple of times as well, and it fits. Carrie and I both started transitioning kind of almost around the same time, really, within a month, I guess. That was one of the things that we had in common that it just clicked. It's like, oh, here's somebody I can talk to that actually gets it, as opposed to someone who was transitioned a long time ago, or somebody younger that transitioned in safer spaces.
Yeah, their experiences are different.
Yeah.
They talk about going through another adolescence, when you do this, because all the things that you couldn't do when you were younger, now you get to do, and it's kind of exciting to go clothes shopping and do all these things. And that's why it's kind of like being baby trans, because, all of a sudden you're a baby again and just growing up all over again. So
yeah. And I would imagine the experimenting, or, just a lip gloss, a lip liner, finding your correct color and blending, and that's really cool. That's amazing that you're having this experience. I'm filled with pride because I can see both of your faces during this, and this is for the audio listeners who are going to be listening to this. Both Kelly and Carrie have beaming smiles on their faces as they talk about the shopping and just the discovery when it comes to that. I'm going to put a website here on the screen for our YouTube watchers, and it is transcanadaproject.ca. This is the main information site for the project that Kelly and Carrie are working on. So let's get right into Transcanada Project. What is it? When are you working on it? Who are you working with? When is it going to get done? All those questions thrown at you, answer them all, and you have 5 minutes to do so.
Ooh, challenge accepted.
Go Kelly.
Oh no. Um, trans. One of the things that's really important to us in the Transcanada Project is helping other people tell their stories. We're not really telling the stories; they're telling them. It's their stories. It's something that's really, really important to us, and to honor the integrity of the story and the people that are telling it. Um, we started off a little slow, getting scrambling to get some people that are willing to be uh, videoed and put up on YouTube. Um, Now we're starting to get more people that are, oh hey, my friend was on there, or I saw this, and I want to be part of this, and um, uh, it's growing, and it's wonderful. We've met some absolutely amazing people. Oh my
Yeah.
god!
Yeah, absolutely.
Every story has been slightly different. There's some interesting common threads, but the people have been just astonishingly wonderful. The response that we've gotten from the participants has been overwhelmingly positive. And people are telling us, "Oh, this is a great thing that you're doing," and it's kind of humbling, actually. Um, I really enjoyed working on this. This is a passion project for me and for Carrie. And we're putting a lot of time and effort into it, and we're getting something back, spiritual, emotional. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So far, almost all the interviews have been on Zoom because of COVID. But we're just now, I mean, things are opening up. We've had our shots. We're safe now. We're mostly harmless. And we just did a trip to Peterborough and met the most amazing woman. And her story is up now already. Heidi Watong. She's a two-spirit woman, ex-police officer and ex-construction worker, and she's 5'11" like me, and nobody messes with her. But she was just an absolute dear. It was amazing to be able to help her tell her story. And it was kind of a shakedown cruise for us to do this, to see if Carrie and I can work together in close proximity without killing each other. And we were mostly successful. No, we actually worked really well together.
We're both still here, so
we're still here. That's right. And working on the road, and which are things that we'd never done before. We've both videotaped things and done, corporate and commercial, and industrial video and photography and whatnot, separately. But now we had to work together for the first time, and it worked. And we got footage that we liked, and we got stuff that the participant liked, and the little red light went on, and the batteries were full, and it just, the stuff that was supposed to work actually worked. It was kind of cool. And a little surprising.
So when I first learned about this, I had initially thought it would be a documentary, like a film documentary, 90 minutes to 2 hours long. You quickly corrected me and said it would be a series of episodes throughout, and the time limit for each one would be different depending on the story.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned just now that the woman that you just mentioned, her story is out there. So does this mean that you are recording the stories and releasing them right away, or are you recording the stories to be released later on?
we're on a weekly schedule, so we release a video every Friday if we can. And so far we've managed to keep that pace. So we pre-record them, we edit them. We try to let people have a quick view of them if there's anything needs to be changed, but then we post them.
Yeah, and here for our YouTube watchers right now, we have the YouTube link here, youtube.com/C Transcanada Project. That's your main spot at the moment for people to find these stories. How many stories would people be able to find today for if people were to watch this immediately here, July 22nd, 2021?
There are currently 16 stories posted. Yeah. We've been starting, so every Friday we're releasing a story, but some of the people that we've met, apart from having their own trans story, they're incredible individuals in and of themselves. So we've done a few where we've done sort of another side interview, and we kind of release those videos on Monday. So rather than it being their story, it's a little bit more topical and things that are relatable for other trans folk. We interviewed Demetria Sparrow, for instance, who's another YouTuber who does makeup on her YouTube site. And so we did a little interview of her. We interviewed Diane Skoll, who's a comedian in Ottawa. That boggles my mind. It's hard enough to come out as trans, but to stand in front of a crowd and make fun of it, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So we did an interview on her and her comedy, and and we just recently interviewed Abigail Curlew, who is a PhD candidate and doing some amazing research, and we talked to her a little bit about doxing and other things that are helpful for people to avoid.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And if we can, I just want to talk about Abigail briefly. As a trans person, she has been doxxed, or at least she studies the hate groups that go with the people who target. Can you tell a little bit more about Abigail? Because I found her story extremely insightful.
Well, if you go to YouTube, she actually didn't want to share too much about what she's doing because there is still danger in what she's doing. Kelly, I don't know if you want to fill in any more.
No, she's actually currently doing the research, so it's not finished. She's gathering more information still. I believe she's in the writing stage at this point, but the video that Carrie edited for internet safety and whatnot was all Abigail's recommendations based on the experience that she's had, learning and to protect herself and other trans women, because trans women and cis women are both targeted by a lot of these groups.
Extremely insightful and well worth the watch. And I'm glad that you mentioned as well, cis women as well would benefit from, because simply being a woman, you're faced with a lot of dangers, predatory dangers on the internet itself. So I love that piece. But there's also something that Abigail said that, makes a lot of sense, but at the same time, it causes you to, oh yeah. And the direct quote from Abigail was, "There is so much more to trans people than being trans."
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's just an aspect of...
And how does that resonate with you? When you hear Abigail say that, how does that resonate with both of you? Especially as baby trans, and everybody's probably asking you a million questions, and now all of a sudden you're like, but I'm still more than just this word. So how are you navigating this your new self questions, but still saying I'm more than just a word?
That's an interesting question, because I within myself, I'm still me, right? And I've always known myself even this way. It just didn't show, right? So when I talk to people these days, a lot of the people who know me, they're like, "But you've changed so much." And it's almost hard for me to recognize how much I have changed, right? I'm starting to get to the point where I'm realizing just how much change there really is. But inside of me, it's still the same me. right? Same values, same person, and even all of this stuff that's on the outside now, it was all hidden on the inside. The project itself, right? I mean, that's one of the big things about what we're trying to do in the project is it's not just about telling people about the trans part of people. It's about saying we're regular people, right? We've got PhD candidates, comedians, we've got a superintendent that's going to be posted tomorrow, or like a building superintendent. There are people who have spent time on the street. There are people, who live a good lifestyle. So there's just like anywhere else in any other demographic, there's a whole range of people. We're not just trans, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a trans woman that is also a parent and a daughter and a marriage partner and a sister and an aunt, and I kind of like all those words. But I mean, there's so much to my life that isn't just being trans. I'm just me.
I'm still a baby podcaster, if I can steal the word baby when it comes to this. One of the things that I've heard from viewers and listeners is that when it comes to Tales of the LGBTQ+, many times we don't focus on a person being gay and what it means to be gay or lesbian, bisexual. We talk about a person's story, and then perhaps at the end of it, we get into, the title of the show. I have to admit, though, when I've had guests who are transgender, intersex, the focus of the show has been on those two realities, more so than the person's personal story of things outside of it. So I'm have to still debate within myself or conversation. We're trying to elevate voices. We're trying to make sure that people are aware, but how much is too much? And where's the fine line of saying, okay, Doug, let's stop talking about being transgender and let's move on to my heart or my soul. So it's an interesting conversation just within myself of where I want to go with this. And hopefully one day that will happen. But at the same time, we're here today having a conversation about the Transcanada Project and the need to have those Canadian stories. So perhaps I've answered my question by that we're not there yet. With my long diatribe of words, can you help me out?
Yeah, I think we're at a stage right now where people don't, trans people are not as visible as we could be, right? People don't understand simply because they don't see. And so it's right now, yeah, we talk about being trans a lot because it's like we want people to understand, right? I think 10, 20, 30 years ago, I don't know exactly, but the LG part of the LGBTQ went through something similar, right? And there was an awful lot of conversation about being gay or being lesbian. And when you talk to somebody who it was about that. Now we've been able to move on and we can see people as being more just real people. And I think the trans community is kind of in the early stages of that. And I hope that, in 10, 20 years, it'll just be a normal thing and nobody will think twice. Oh, they're trans, didn't even know.
Yeah, when I took my boys out to get haircuts yesterday, and the lady cutting one of them had hair basic. I said, "Oh, is that your mom?" And he said, "No, she's my dad. She's trans."
You have all of these episodes already.
Mm-hmm.
How many more are you planning? When will the Transcanada Project meet its peak, and when will you be able to step back and say, we've done our job, we've done what we wanted to?
When we burn out. We actually have some big ideas. Right now, it's YouTube, and it's taking the stories one at a time off Zoom. We've been a little spoiled actually with Zoom because it's too easy to record a story. But we've actually been talking with Rogers, and possibly we'll look at putting some of the stories out on a Rogers show. in the original plan, without COVID in the way, when we went to visit people, the hope was that we would do some photography as well, that hopefully we'd be able to turn that into more of a gallery project. So there's another way to tell those stories. And recently too, we've been saying, okay, so we're getting all of the Zoom interviews and being able to put those up on YouTube. But when we do these longer trips, maybe we can think a little bit more in terms of that kind of documentary thing you were talking about before, where it'd be multiple people and maybe with more of a thread of a particular topic rather than just the stories of individuals. So there's lots of different ways this can go. And when we run out of one thing, maybe we'll be able to pick up another. So
sometimes we've gotten suggestions from participants, and just kind of bouncing ideas off each other in terms of, well, hang on a second, this is an interesting commonality that we hadn't noticed before. That makes an interesting story too. We're doing a little trip around Ontario in 9 days. We're doing this in 2 weeks, so it's coming up really soon. For the planning person, there's a lot of stuff to do.
I just have to charge batteries.
Oh, you'll be working, sweetie.
I know. Well, my turn comes after the fact.
That's true. So it's our little trip to Peterborough was kind of a shakedown to see how things are going to work, and now we're doing a 9-day tour around southeastern Ontario, Ottawa, North Bay, Sudbury, and back to the Toronto area, and we've got a number of interviews lined up, and it's going to test our skill again. Can we set up, do a good interview, interact with the people in a lovely way, and then tear down and hustle our butts off to the next one? We're taking. I'm in the truck right now. I'm actually testing out a couple of things, including the lighting, and I'm working off my cell phone and my laptop right now. And it's going to. I'm really excited. Actually, this is going to be a cool trip. I'm looking forward to it.
It sounds like, to this point, it sounds like everything has been perfect. Everything has just gone easy. Everything has been smooth. You've met all your targets. Once a week, every Friday, you have a new episode up. Perhaps even Monday, you have some extra footage. It sounds perfect to me so far. Am I right that everything has been hunky-dory and everything has been tens right across the board?
I think we both are pushing ourselves a little bit, and burnout is a real possibility on it.
Yeah.
One of the things that I had picked up, YouTube, when you post a video, it will do an automatic transcript, but it's not terribly great. It's good enough to kind of play behind the video to help people, but it's not really very clear. So I had kind of taken it on myself to take those transcripts and to clean them up, put them back into YouTube, and also put them onto a blog so people could actually go and read them. And then realizing and thinking that, we're in Canada, so we need both official languages. I was actually using some online translating tools to create a French blog as well. But that's one of the things where just kind of went, okay, this is just too much. So there are a few behind, and they'll probably fall behind a little bit more still, unless we can find some help to do some of those tasks as well.
Yep.
So we haven't hit absolutely everything, but we're doing pretty well.
We are, and we are working. We're working surprisingly well together, given our relative lack of experience with each other, and the fact that we have real lives as well, somewhere elsewhere. One of the interesting things that I've been working on is trying to get some more diversity into the program, into the project. So as an example, I contacted a female to male transitioning group in Ottawa, saying that we're having a hard time getting trans men. And I got 47 responses. That's about a year's worth of interviews. So we've been going through that. We're looking at the possibility of doing a group interview and trying to come up with the logistics of dealing with some of that. And it's starting to mushroom a little bit out now. We're getting people asking to be part of the project, which is like, how did you find us? Which is kind of cool.
They just come across the YouTube channel or the
Yeah.
website.
Yeah. We've had several people said, "Oh, you interviewed my friend." I have. There's one in particular. I haven't seen her in 25 years. So
going with the name Transcanada, at some point you're going to be leaving the comfortable confines of Ontario, coming out west, and I believe, Kelly, you have a connection to Saskatchewan, if I remember right.
Yep. Yeah, I was born in Prince Albert. Yeah, way far north. An hour's drive south of Santa Claus's house.
Yes. So at
And
some point, both of you are going to be coming out west. Are you still looking for people to interview as you go along the Trans-Canada Highway to BC? And if
absolutely.
so, how can someone who's listening to Tales of the LGBTQ plus today get a hold of you in order to set up times to tell their story?
Probably the best thing to do is to get to our contact information on our website, transcanadaproject.ca. Everything, all the links to everything is there. I respond very quickly to requests, and we make arrangements, and we work out paperwork and details, and I'm the paperwork girl. That's what I do. I drive too. Yeah, we're actually we're sort of planning, not sort of. We're definitely planning a trip out west, out to BC, up to the Yukon and back in 2022. That's dependent on funding at this point, though, because that's a bigger trip. It'll be about 30 days. There's a lot of logistics to lay down, and I'm planning that one right now, because it's going to take the better part of a year to get all of that organized. But
what are some of the roadblocks? You mentioned the funding. You mentioned how it was difficult to find men, female to male, men who would be part of this. Are those the main hurdles that you've had so far, or are there others?
There's logistical challenges. I mean, when we started doing things on Zoom, we had technical challenges in terms of making the videos actually look decent. The Zoom's not the ideal format.
So we're relying on other people's equipment, cameras.
Yep, stuff that we didn't get to control. Yeah. So that's part of going on the trips is also like, okay, we can bring a level of production quality to the stories that we weren't able to manage over Zoom. And there's also the personal interaction with the people that make the interviews much more intimate, that you can't do over Zoom. And we've done, and the one we did with Heidi, it was a wonderful experience. Just as an aside, she drove up in her big truck and hopped out and said, "Are you Kelly?" And said, "Yes, I've had my shots. Can I have a hug?" and she's a member of Bear Clan, so this big bear woman came over and gave me a bear hug, and my truck is named Bear. She thought that was pretty cool.
So both of you are both of you, as we make mention, I think people are going to take away the word baby trans from this, but this has to also be such a learning stage for you when it comes to people, education they're able to have through just simple discussion. So for both of you, what are you learning about yourselves through this entire process?
Well, I really appreciate that too. I mean, I think what we're doing is important in getting the stories out there, but unfortunately, everybody can't have the experiences that we're having and actually meeting and actually talking to these people. And that has been incredible. As I've said, my mind is just kind of blown sometimes at the diversity and the things that I never even thought of before. Just as far as gender and the spectrum and the different views that people look at. One of the people we interviewed has dissociative identity disorder, and like just to understand what that meant and how that intersected with them being trans and with them being a person, just dealing with life. These things I never even heard of or thought about before. So it's been amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've learned a lot about. I've learned a lot about myself as a result of talking to some of these people as well. That trans people that have gone through transition through much more difficult times than we have years ago, and their experiences kind of makes some of the inconveniences that I've felt seem palatable. And and then there's younger people that you kind of like, ooh, she's so pretty. I hate that. I'm 58, and it's
a little harder to transition when you're that much older. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's great that you just alluded to something, Carrie, and it's something that I've always wondered when it comes to transitioning. And again, we're coming to transitioning, but you mentioned as an older, quote unquote, person and all that. Are there supports for someone who is transitioning, not in their teens, not in their 20s, maybe not their 30s? I don't want to assume, but are there supports, and is there advice that has been given to either of you when it comes to this?
Biggest one I've heard advice was, you're never too old. If this is who you are, this is your authentic self, do it. There's a lot of people that have talked about regret. I have felt it, but I am now very happy with myself. I'm extremely happy with myself. And it would have been cool to transition when I was in high school. It actually probably wouldn't have been that great, because that would have been late 70s, early 80s. It probably would have been horrible, actually. Because it wasn't the climate wasn't ideal for that sort of thing. It certainly wouldn't have been accepting. I transitioned at the right time for me, and it's never too late. You're never too old.
Yeah, and I think, it is a bit of a female thing to do, to compare yourself to other females, and how you measure up, and just like everybody else, we got to learn that what, we are who we are. And I think Kelly looks amazing, even though some days she doesn't feel it, but she does. She looks amazing, and so we support each other that way, I guess, a little bit, just trying to encourage each other and say, you know what, you're you, and you're loving you, and just be you.
Earlier on in the interview tonight, Kelly, you mentioned your father and a brother, I believe, and mentioned the word daughter, sister.
Yeah.
When you heard those words from these two important people in your life, how did that make you feel?
I cried. When I was talking with my brother initially, he was one of the first people I came out to, and I had a whole spiel all set up, ready to go. And within a couple of words of the sentence, okay, so you're my sister. It was just like instant, total acceptance, no strings attached, no nothing. And it was, I couldn't even finish the sentence. I was crying. It was beautiful. And he's been an absolute rock for me. Dad has taken a little while to get used to the idea, because we had, frankly, a really good father-son relationship for a long time. And father-daughter doesn't roll off the tongue for him, but and my mom's taken a little while to get used to the idea of having a daughter instead of a son. She mourned the loss of her son initially, and now she has a daughter, and she loves me. And More tears. But happy
I
one.
tried not to have a Barbara Walters moment there. Tried
Yeah.
not to, but when you said those words before, I wanted to come back to them because, you know, you could just roll those words off a person's tongue of sister and daughter, but in a situation like this, they're so important. Just
Sure.
like pronouns, she, her, they, them. In
Yeah.
this case, just them finally being able to see you as you've been all along, but now you're at the point now where you're showing and having acceptance in whatever way that is.
Yeah. It's foundational to your core. It's so foundational, and to have that acceptance and have them say those words, and they're just words, but my God, they ever mean a lot. They really do. Yeah.
It's a little bit of an area where Kelly and my story kind of differ and separate a little bit because most of my family is not accepting, and it's difficult. And so I've had to learn. I'm trying to take it slow for them a little bit. Not Kelly was able to just rip the Band-Aid off and just go for it, and it's not been quite that easy for me to do that. But being non-binary, I think, made it a little easier for me to go a little slower too. But the other challenge then, though, is, a lot of the words that you're talking about, there are no non-binary versions of those words, right?
Yeah.
Father's Day, Mother's Day came along. Which one do I go with? I need a day halfway between that is non-binary Parents' Day. Somewhere in the spectrum between the two, right? I don't know.
Yeah, and it needs to be at the end of May. Halfway between Mother's Day and Father's Day, somewhere in there. And you mentioned the vocabulary, the words. There's not a word.
No, the sister or brother, neither one of them works. Husband or wife, neither one of them works.
Mm-hmm. Well, and in many ways, when it comes to vocabulary, that's a very English vocabulary problem we have, because I lived in China for many years, and Mandarin and Cantonese, he, she, in their first language, it's the same word. And so when they're learning English, the reason why our Chinese speakers have difficulties with pronouns is because when they translate, it's the same word. So he, she doesn't exist. Maybe they have it right.
It's interesting. When we were talking with Heidi, she mentioned that in Ojibwe, the people are not gendered. And it was a colonial thing, that the language was extended to include those concepts, and they have a third gender in the sense that they have two spirit people that bridge the gap, and also bridge the gap between the spirit world and Mother Earth. That was something that was a beautiful. We learn so much from the people we interview. It's a blessing to us to be able to even talk to some of these people. It's amazing. Yeah.
Hey, Carrie, here comes your Barbara Walters moment with this question. So you be prepared. In the interview tonight, you mentioned the project, and you said, getting it right, and you just want to make sure that you get it right for yourself. This could be professionally when it comes to the project, or yourself. When will you know that you've got it right? Or have you already got that figured out?
Well, I think the feedback is so important, right? When we have people coming back to us and saying that they appreciate what's coming out there and to keep doing it. And we've had a few people say that, and it's not just gratifying, it means so much, right? As Kelly said, it's a passion project. It's not just something we're doing as a vocation, right? So it touches our hearts when other people are touched by the stories that are being told.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, no Barbara Walters tears.
No,
That's okay.
Carrie sets high standards for herself and achieves them all the time. I'm so impressed with her work.
Yeah, part of my challenge is I tend to push people because of that, and that's not good. I don't want to push Kelly away, because I love her so much, and she does such a great job.
We're sisters, even if that isn't the right word.
Yeah. I think you're stuck with her now. I don't think with Kelly that she's going anywhere, so you don't have to worry about that. That's for sure. I want to come back to letting everybody know more about the Transcanada Project and where they can find the information. The very first place to look, your website, transcanadaproject.ca. When people go to this website, what are they going to find?
Well, there's a basic description of what the project is about. There's a link to our video, which we're going to need to update soon because it was the very first video we put together of the two of us explaining what the project was about. There's contact page. There's a few of our sponsors that are listed there, and there's a few ways that people can help out to help support us.
And what are some of those ways? Because people who are going to be listening to this today, 3 months from now, a year from now, how can we as allies or as family members within this rainbow community, how can we help the Transcanada Project?
Well, we want to keep doing this. We want to be able to do these trips, and the trips obviously are not going to be cheap. We're going to pay for gas, and gas is getting more and more expensive all the time. So there are different ways that you can support us. We have a Patreon. If you can find it in your heart to support us on an ongoing basis, then you can subscribe to the Patreon. And the more people we have in Patreon, the more we'll be able to put some special content in there for people who support us in that way. If people can't commit to a regular thing and just want to make a quick one-time donation, on the website, there is a gift that can be made there in any amount based on, I've set up the PayPal link for $2, and you can do that in any number of $2 that you want. And we have a little bit of kitsch on there too, if you want a t-shirt or something like that. Yeah.
A sponsorship can be for the project itself. We've actually had a couple of sponsors help with gas on specific trips. The Peterborough trip was sponsored by one group. We have just got a new sponsor that's basically paid for the gas for the Ontario trip. We can't eat, but we can drive.
I'm just gonna put this out there too, because I've been bugging Kelly to go to Winnebago and ask him for a sponsorship of a Winnebago RV. Like, that would be awesome, right? Okay, so if anybody from Winnebago is listening right now, you can sponsor us with an RV. Just lend it to us for the trips. That would be awesome. We want to paint it pink and blue and purple and yellow.
And just to let people know, if they don't know, that those are the trans colors, and make sure everything's visible.
Yep. And non-binary colors too.
And non-binary. Who are some of those sponsors who have stepped in? Because for a sponsor to step in so early in a project, that's fantastic. So if you feel comfortable, definitely let's give them credit.
They have specifically asked not to.
That's fair.
They just said, we're helping you guys out, and we think what you're doing is important. We're not doing this for us. We're doing it for you. And that was beautiful. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So when people are through finding information on the Transcanada Project, please find the content using their YouTube channel. People who are watching through the Tales of the LGBTQ plus YouTube channel here, we can see it on the screen. But for people who are going to be listening through the audio, youtube.com/C/Transcanada Project. Currently, there's approximately 16 videos. It gets updated every Friday with perhaps a little bit more on Mondays itself. Will there be, let's say, a 2-week break at all, or is this going to be every week for the next while?
We'll probably take a break over Christmas. We're for the trip in Ontario, we're going to be producing some additional content, basically a travel log, so that there's some continuity on the actual project itself, on the trip itself. Sorry, and I'm making arrangements to make sure that we have Friday content throughout while we're away on the trip.
Yeah, Kelly says I push myself, and honestly, if we can get the interviews done far enough ahead that we can get them edited, my hope would be that we wouldn't have a break, that we would still be able to have them, because we schedule them to go out. So we can take a 2-week break as long as they're recorded and ready to go, right? So
I understand that as a podcaster. It's easier said than done at times.
It is.
And there's one final place at this moment where you can find information about the Transcanada Project, and that's through their Facebook site, which miraculously enough is also Transcanada Project. So they've made it very easy for you to find all of their information. So you've got the website, you have the YouTube, you have the Facebook. So please do seek out information. And it goes right back to with what was being said before, which I had taken from your website. Doing this project is to make the transgender community more visible and relatable to both trans questioning people and those seeking to know them. I know I'm definitely a person who is learning, seeking to know you, seeking to know more stories, and I am blessed to be open and to be hearing your stories. Both of you here tonight, thank you so much for coming to this episode of Tales of the LGBTQ+ and sharing your stories. There's someone who's going to be listening to this today, months from now, years from now, who are going to say, there's somebody out there who's telling my stories. I feel better. Final words from both of you. What would you like to share to our listeners tonight?
It gets better. It's never too late to be yourself.
Yeah, be yourself, definitely. And no matter what pace that is, like I said, Kelly ripped the Band-Aid off. I'm going much, much more slowly through it all, but, go at your own pace, but do it for sure, because it is worth it. It is worth it.
It is worth it.
And I'm going to steal Kelly's line that she usually says, like and subscribe. And that is not a joke, because when you subscribe to the YouTube channel, it helps the algorithms get the videos out. That goes for the LGBTQ+ site and for ours. And the reason we say that is because when the algorithms pick it up, they get distributed more. More people see it, and that's what we want. We want these stories to get out there for people to see. So.
Absolutely. And for the listeners, the regular listeners of Tales of the LGBTQ+, I'll be sure to list all of these links on our social media sites as well for you to be able to find them much easier as well. Kelly, Carrie, thank you so much for being here tonight. Please come back again in person. I know, Kelly especially, we talk to each other every once in a while online. Carrie, we're going to talk more as the weeks and months go about. You're now stuck with me. You're now stuck with the listeners. So we're the Rainbow community, and we're here for each other.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
On behalf of Kelly and Carrie of the Transcanada Project, my name is Douglas Parsons. Thank you very much for listening, reminding you to be good and always text when you get home. Until next time, everyone.